Chapter 1. Introduction to White Nights. White Nights, written by Fyodor Dostoevsky, is a novella that delves deep into the human experience of loneliness, dreams, and the quest for connection. Published in 1848, it is one of Dostoevsky's earlier works and provides a glimpse into the themes that would later dominate his more famous novels, such as Crime and Punishment and The Brothers Karamazov. The story is set in St. Petersburg, Russia, during the White Nights of summer. This is a time when the city experiences extended daylight hours, with the sun setting only briefly before rising again. The setting itself becomes a metaphor for the narrator's emotional state, a period of half-light, where clarity is elusive and confusion reigns. This sense of blurred reality mirrors the internal struggle of the protagonist, a lonely man who roams the streets of St. Petersburg at night in search of something meaningful to fill the emptiness of his life. The novella is told from the first-person perspective of the unnamed narrator, allowing readers to deeply engage with his thoughts and feelings. He is a dreamer, lost in his fantasies, and his life is defined by solitude. While he is physically in the world, he feels emotionally disconnected, an observer rather than a participant in life. His thoughts often wander, and he finds solace in his daydreams, where he can imagine a reality more fulfilling than the one he experiences. White Nights is not just a story of loneliness, however. It is also about the potential for human connection and the hope that even in the depths of despair, love and companionship might emerge. In this way, the novella explores themes of human vulnerability, desire, and the possibility of transformation. Dostoevsky's portrayal of St. Petersburg is not just a backdrop but a reflection of the emotional landscape of the narrator. The city's grand buildings, canals, and bustling streets serve as symbols of the narrator's inner turmoil. As he wanders the city at night, he encounters a range of experiences that lead him to question his own identity and the possibility of changing his life. In this chapter, we are introduced to the narrator's world, his solitude, his wandering, and his tendency to live in his head. It sets the stage for the emotional journey he will undergo when he meets Nastenka, a young woman who will change his life. Yet, as we will see, this encounter will bring both hope and heartbreak, leading to an exploration of unrequited love, self-reflection, and the complexities of human relationships. Chapter 2. The Lonely Protagonist. In White Nights, Dostoevsky introduces us to a young, unnamed protagonist who lives in the bustling city of St. Petersburg. However, despite being surrounded by people, he feels profoundly isolated and disconnected from the world around him. This loneliness forms the core of his character and drives his actions throughout the novella. The protagonist spends most of his time wandering the streets of the city at night, in the quiet solitude of the White Nights, a phenomenon unique to St. Petersburg during the summer, where the sun barely sets. These nights, when the sky is filled with a soft, eternal glow, symbolize the protagonist's inner state, neither fully awake nor fully asleep, caught between reality and dreams. He is not entirely withdrawn from the world, but he is emotionally distant, constantly observing life rather than participating in it. He doesn't have any close friends or family, which only deepens his sense of isolation. As he walks through the streets, he often reflects on the lives of others, feeling disconnected and unable to form real connections himself. His solitary existence is filled with daydreams and fantasies, as he uses his imagination to create a world where he can experience emotions and interactions he craves but can't seem to attain in real life. This profound loneliness also fuels his idealization of others. The protagonist tends to project his own desires and emotions onto strangers, imagining that they, too, experience the same kind of isolation and longing. In his mind, everyone around him shares a similar, silent sadness. But in reality, the protagonist keeps his thoughts and feelings hidden, unable to express his inner turmoil. He lives a life of quiet despair, and the White Nights offer him a strange solace. The bright but fleeting light mirrors his hope for connection, but it is always just out of reach. His loneliness becomes more than just a personal struggle. It becomes an existential experience that shapes his worldview. In this chapter, we see that the protagonist is a man trapped between reality and his fantasies. He is aware of his isolation but unable to break free from it. This emotional conflict makes him a complex, sympathetic character, whose journey through loneliness will set the stage for the deeper connections he begins to form with others as the story unfolds. Chapter 3. The Introduction of Nastenka. In the third chapter of White Nights, the narrator's life takes an unexpected turn when he meets Nastenka, a young woman who brings light into his otherwise lonely existence. Their meeting takes place on one of his nightly walks, a ritual he has come to rely on as an escape from his isolation. Nastenka is described as a delicate, sweet, and vulnerable young woman, standing on a bridge by the canal. She seems different from the other people the narrator has observed in the city. She is more than just a passing figure in his daydreams. Her presence immediately captivates him, and he senses that there is something special about her. As they begin to speak, the narrator is struck by her warmth and her openness, which makes him feel both drawn to her and nervous. For the first time in a long while, he is no longer alone in the world. He has found someone with whom he can share a conversation. Nastenka reveals to the narrator that she is living with her grandmother, who raised her after her parents' death. She explains that she is in love with a man who has left her, but she is still waiting for him to return. This man, whom Nastenka refers to as the one who promised to return, has been away for some time, and she has kept herself devoted to him, despite the loneliness she feels in his absence. As she speaks, the narrator begins to learn more about her life, her dreams, and her deep emotional struggles. He feels an overwhelming urge to comfort her, to offer her the same kindness and understanding that she is so willing to share with him. Nastenka's vulnerability touches him, and he begins to imagine himself as the person who could fill the empty space in her life. Nastenka's story becomes the center of their conversation, and the narrator listens with great empathy. Despite his own loneliness, he is absorbed in her emotions and finds a sense of purpose in being the listener and caretaker for her. Through their exchanges, the narrator starts to believe that he might play a role in Nastenka's life, even if it is only in a small, supportive way. Their connection grows as they meet several more times over the course of the next few nights. Each encounter deepens the narrator's feelings for her, and he begins to see their relationship as something more than just a chance meeting. In his mind, Nastenka becomes a symbol of hope, a beautiful, kind soul who could change the course of his lonely existence. The narrator starts to imagine an idealized future with her, where they can build a life together. His dreams become more vivid, and he begins to live in a world of fantasy, where Nastenka and he are inseparable. However, even as their bond grows, the narrator remains unaware of the full complexity of Nastenka's emotions and the depth of her attachment to the man she is waiting for. While the narrator's feelings for Nastenka are full of love and devotion, Nastenka's heart still belongs to another, and her connection with the narrator is purely one of friendship and emotional support. This chapter marks the beginning of the narrator's emotional journey as he becomes enmeshed in Nastenka's world. Through her, he experiences the powerful feelings of hope, love, and longing, which challenge his understanding of his own loneliness. As their bond deepens, it is clear that the narrator's inner world will never be the same again. Chapter 4: The Narrator's Dreams and Hope. As the story progresses, the narrator becomes increasingly consumed by his dreams and hopes about Nastenka. After meeting her, he feels as though he has found something precious that has been missing in his life for a long time. Someone who understands his feelings of loneliness and someone to share his quiet nights with. In the days that follow, the narrator's imagination begins to soar, and he starts to dream of a future where he and Nastenka are together. Each night, as he waits for their next meeting, the narrator's thoughts are filled with idealized visions of their life together. He imagines that Nastenka will be his companion, that they will walk the streets of St. Petersburg side by side, sharing conversations and experiences, and perhaps even building a home together. He sees her as a symbol of everything he has longed for, a connection, a partner, someone who will fill the emptiness he has felt for so long. The narrator spends hours daydreaming, and with each passing day, his thoughts about Nastenka grow more intense. His imagination constructs a perfect world where he is not just a lonely observer of life but an active participant in a meaningful relationship. He believes that their friendship could lead to something deeper, something more lasting. He is certain that Nastenka will come to see him not just as a confidant, but as a potential lover and life partner. He imagines her falling in love with him in the same way he has already fallen for her. In these dreams, the narrator often envisions a life full of romance and joy, where they share simple pleasures like taking walks, enjoying the beauty of the city, and supporting one another through life's challenges. He sees Nastenka's sadness gradually fading, as she finds comfort and happiness in his company. The narrator begins to believe that he is the one who can heal her emotional wounds, that he is the person who can make her life complete. He imagines that, through his love and devotion, he will bring meaning and happiness into her world. However, there is a painful gap between the narrator's dreams and the reality of their situation. The narrator's fantasies are built on his own desires and emotional needs, but he is unaware of the complexity of Nastenka's feelings. While he wishes for Nastenka to reciprocate his affection, she is still deeply devoted to the man she has been waiting for, the man who promised to return. Her loyalty to this man remains steadfast, and her heart is not yet open to the possibility of a new relationship. The narrator's dreams are, in many ways, a projection of his hopes and desires rather than an accurate reflection of Nastenka's reality. Despite this, the narrator cannot help but cling to his dreams. He is so deeply immersed in his vision of their future together that he convinces himself that it is only a matter of time before Nastenka sees him in the same way. He imagines that, once her love for the man she is waiting for fades, she will turn to him and realize that he is the one who has always been there for her. This belief sustains him as he continues to meet her, filling their conversations with his own hopes and emotional needs. In this chapter, Dostoevsky explores the nature of dreams and how they can shape a person's reality. The narrator's dreams are his escape from the painful truth of his loneliness, and they become a source of solace and meaning in his life. Yet, these dreams also carry an element of danger, as they blind him to the real emotions and intentions of those around him. His hopes are a double-edged sword. They give him something to live for, but they also create an emotional trap from which it will be difficult to escape. The chapter sets the stage for the emotional clash between the narrator's fantasies and the reality of Nastenka's feelings. Chapter 5. Nastenka's Confession. As the story moves forward, the narrator's hopes and dreams for a life with Nastenka continue to grow, but the tension between his fantasies and reality begins to intensify. He is filled with anticipation each time they meet, eager for any sign that Nastenka might feel the same way about him. However, despite the bond they share and the hours of deep conversation, the narrator remains uncertain of her true feelings. He believes that she might eventually return his affection, though he is not entirely sure. One evening, as they sit together in a quiet, dimly lit room, Nastenka's mood seems different. She appears to be deep in thought, more serious and less lively than before. The narrator, always sensitive to her emotions, notices the change immediately. He feels a growing sense of apprehension, as if something important is about to be revealed. The air between them feels heavier than usual, and the quiet is filled with unspoken words. After a long silence, Nastenka finally speaks. She begins to tell the narrator her story, opening up in a way she has never done before. Her voice trembles as she recalls the promises made to her by the man she has been waiting for. This man, whom she has loved for so long, had promised to return to her and take her away from her lonely life. For years, she has held on to this promise, nurturing the belief that they would be together, that they would build a future. As Nastenka speaks, the narrator listens carefully, but his heart sinks. He realizes that the love she has for this man is deep and unwavering. Nastenka speaks of him with such tenderness and longing that the narrator feels a sharp pang of jealousy and sadness. Her eyes glow with the hope that one day he will return, and she believes with all her heart that their love story is not over. Nastenka goes on to tell the narrator that she had never stopped waiting, even though the man's absence has caused her pain. Her emotions are tied to a distant dream of reunion, a dream that she has kept alive for so long. It is clear to the narrator now that no matter how much she enjoys their conversations or feels comforted by his presence, Nastenka's heart belongs to someone else. The confession is both a revelation and a heartbreak for the narrator. In a way, he had always suspected that Nastenka's heart was not his to win, but hearing it directly from her is a painful truth. Nastenka does not see him as a romantic partner, but as a friend and confidant. The affection she feels for him is genuine, but it is not the love he has dreamed of. The man she is waiting for is the one who holds her heart, and no one, not even the narrator, can replace him in her life. Nastenka's confession brings a quiet, somber shift to their relationship. For the first time, the narrator must confront the reality of their connection. He understands that his own feelings of longing and desire were based on his fantasies, not on Nastenka's true emotions. His dream of a future with her crumbles before him, and he is left to grapple with the painful realization that his hopes were never grounded in the truth of her heart. In the moments that follow, the narrator's feelings of love and hope are replaced by a deep sadness. He is still grateful for the time they have shared and the conversations that have meant so much to him, but he knows now that he will never be able to change Nastenka's heart. She has always been loyal to the man she loves, and her devotion to him is something the narrator cannot replace. As Nastenka finishes her story, there is an uncomfortable silence between them. The narrator struggles to find words, unsure of what to say. He wants to comfort her, to tell her that everything will be okay, but he cannot escape the feeling that their connection is not meant to be. He knows that Nastenka's heart belongs to someone else, and no matter how much he wishes for it to be different, he cannot change her feelings. Nastenka's confession, while heartbreaking, also marks a turning point for the narrator. It forces him to let go of the dream he had created in his mind and face the painful reality of their relationship. The chapter ends with a sense of quiet resignation, as the narrator begins to accept that the love he hoped for will never come to be. This moment of clarity, though painful, is a necessary step for him to understand the true nature of his feelings for Nastenka and to begin moving forward from the illusions he had built in his heart. Chapter 6: The Unfolding Tragedy. As the days pass, the narrator's emotional turmoil deepens. Nastenka's confession, though a necessary revelation, has set in motion a series of events that he cannot undo. His dreams of a life with her, built on illusions and silent hopes, begin to unravel. The reality of their situation becomes impossible to ignore, and the contrast between his unrequited love and Nastenka's devotion to the man she is waiting for grows starker with each passing day. The narrator is consumed by an overwhelming sense of loss. His connection to Nastenka had been built on shared moments, on fleeting glimpses of affection, but now it feels as though everything he thought he understood about their relationship has been shattered. Each encounter with her reminds him of the deep chasm between their feelings. While Nastenka is kind and compassionate, her heart remains firmly in the past, tethered to the man she has been waiting for, and no matter how much the narrator desires to be more than a friend, he knows that he will never be able to take that place in her heart. With his heart heavy and his mind clouded by despair, the narrator withdraws inwardly. He no longer engages in the same hopeful daydreams about Nastenka, and the moments they share no longer carry the same lightness and joy. The atmosphere between them shifts, no longer filled with the excitement of possibility but instead marked by an unspoken sadness that both of them feel but neither can address. Nastenka, despite her affection for the narrator, remains caught in the web of her own dreams and promises to the man she awaits. As time goes on, the tragedy of the situation becomes more apparent. The narrator, unable to hold on to his hope, begins to see the futility of his dreams. His heart aches with each conversation, each look exchanged with Nastenka. He longs to break free of his feelings, to find peace in the truth that has been laid bare before him. But the pain of loving someone who does not return that love is a wound that refuses to heal. One fateful evening, the narrator and Nastenka meet as they have done many times before. But this time, the meeting is different. There is a palpable sense of finality in the air, as though both of them know that something has changed irreparably. The narrator, though silent, feels the weight of his emotions pressing down on him. He longs to confess everything, his sorrow, his regret, and the painful understanding that Nastenka will never be his, but he remains quiet, unable to find the right words. Nastenka, sensing the shift in their dynamic, becomes more distant. She knows that the narrator's feelings have changed, that his love for her has become something more than just friendship. But in her heart, she cannot love him in the same way. The realization of this unbridgeable gap between them is a source of pain for both of them, yet neither can bring themselves to speak the truth aloud. The evening passes in a quiet, uneasy silence. Nastenka, still devoted to the man she has been waiting for, expresses her hope that he will return soon. But the narrator, now fully aware of the impossibility of his own desires, feels a deep sense of resignation. He knows that Nastenka's life, her heart, and her dreams are not his to shape. His role in her life is limited to that of a friend, and though he cherishes their time together, he understands that he can never be the one to fulfill her dreams. In this chapter, Dostoevsky masterfully explores the theme of unrequited love and the tragic nature of human relationships. The narrator's growing awareness of the impossibility of his desires mirrors the painful reality of many people who experience love that is not returned. The tragedy is not just in the fact that Nastenka does not love him in the way he hopes, but in the internal conflict and emotional turmoil he experiences as he comes to terms with this truth. The unfolding tragedy is one of emotional growth, albeit through immense pain. The narrator must now grapple with the harsh reality of his feelings for Nastenka and confront the limits of his own desires. His inner struggle and the quiet heartbreak of his situation make this chapter one of the most poignant in the story, as it highlights the delicate balance between love, hope, and the harsh truths that life often presents. As the chapter closes, the narrator is left alone with his thoughts, facing the inevitable consequences of his unrequited love. The tragedy lies not just in the loss of the love he dreamed of, but in the deep emotional scars that will take time to heal. The chapter leaves the reader with a sense of lingering sadness, as the narrator is left to reflect on what could have been and what will never be. Chapter 7. Themes of Love, Loneliness, and Dreams. In this chapter, Dostoevsky delves deeply into the themes of love, loneliness, and dreams, which are central to the emotional landscape of White Nights. Through the narrator's experiences and reflections, the reader is invited to explore how these themes shape his world and ultimately lead him down a path of profound self-realization. Love in White Nights is presented as both a powerful force and a source of suffering. The narrator's unrequited love for Nastenka is central to the narrative. His feelings for her are intense, pure, and filled with an idealized longing. He imagines a future with her, building castles in the air, creating a perfect life that exists only in his mind. His love for Nastenka becomes something more than just an emotion. It transforms into a dream, a fantasy he clings to despite knowing deep down that it is unattainable. This kind of love is both beautiful and painful. The narrator's willingness to love without hope of being loved in return speaks to the nobility and sacrifice often associated with unrequited love. Yet, the narrator also discovers that love, when not reciprocated, can isolate a person. His love for Nastenka becomes a form of loneliness, where he is emotionally isolated despite being in the presence of someone he holds dear. In this way, love is shown to be paradoxical. It can both connect and separate individuals. While the narrator longs for intimacy, the distance between him and Nastenka grows as she continues to wait for the man she loves. The gap between their hearts widens, and the narrator is left to confront the reality that love can sometimes bring about more isolation than fulfillment. Loneliness is another theme that emerges clearly in the chapter. Although the narrator is surrounded by people and experiences fleeting connections, he is fundamentally alone. His solitude is not just physical, it is emotional. Despite his connection with Nastenka, he is unable to break through the walls of loneliness that have been built around his heart. This loneliness is exacerbated by his feelings of inadequacy and his inability to express his love to Nastenka. In a world where he is surrounded by others, the narrator's isolation is a reflection of how loneliness can exist even in the presence of others. Dostoevsky skillfully captures the inner turmoil of the narrator, who is both haunted and defined by his loneliness. The narrator's isolation is not just a result of Nastenka's unavailability, but also a product of his own internal world. His dreams of a perfect life with Nastenka create an emotional distance from reality. He chooses to live in a world of idealized visions, which, in turn, pushes him further away from true human connection. The tragedy of the narrator's loneliness is that it is self-imposed. He becomes a prisoner of his own dreams and fantasies, unable to connect with others because he is trapped in a vision of a life that can never be. Dreams are another key theme in this chapter. Throughout the story, the narrator's dreams serve as an escape from his painful reality. They offer him solace and a temporary reprieve from the heartache he feels. The dreams he builds with Nastenka are filled with hope and possibility, but they are also fragile and fleeting. When Nastenka reveals the truth about her past and the man she is waiting for, the narrator's dreams begin to collapse, leaving him with a painful realization that what he had hoped for is not meant to be. Dostoevsky explores the idea that dreams can be both a source of comfort and a source of despair. While the narrator's dreams of Nastenka offer him a sense of purpose and connection, they also blind him to the reality of the situation. His idealization of her and his imagined future with her become a double-edged sword. The dreams that once offered hope now only serve to deepen his sense of loss and despair when confronted with the truth. In the end, the narrator is left to grapple with the tension between dreams and reality, and the painful realization that sometimes dreams cannot be realized. This chapter also touches upon the theme of the search for meaning. The narrator's internal conflict reflects the universal human struggle to find purpose and fulfillment. In his love for Nastenka, he searches for meaning in a relationship that will never be fully realized. His dreams are a way to fill the emptiness he feels, but they are ultimately unsustainable. The chapter highlights how individuals often seek meaning in relationships, love, and dreams, only to discover that these sources of fulfillment can be fleeting or illusory. In conclusion, Chapter 7 of White Nights brings together the themes of love, loneliness, and dreams to create a poignant exploration of the human condition. The narrator's deep love for Nastenka, his profound loneliness, and his fragile dreams form a complex emotional landscape that resonates with readers. Dostoevsky's exploration of these themes emphasizes the inherent tension between idealism and reality, the longing for connection, and the painful acceptance of unmet desires. The chapter ends with the narrator left to confront the complexity of his emotions, realizing that the love and dreams he holds so dearly may never come to fruition, and that loneliness may remain his only true companion. Chapter 8. Conclusion and Reflection. In the final chapter of White Nights, Dostoevsky offers readers a moment of deep reflection on the experiences, emotions, and growth of the narrator throughout the story. The events of the previous chapters, filled with love, loss, loneliness, and dreams, now culminate in a bittersweet ending that encapsulates the complexities of human emotions. The narrator, having shared an intense emotional connection with Nastenka, comes to the painful realization that their brief encounter was both transformative and fleeting. Nastenka, who had initially been a source of hope and emotional connection for the narrator, has found her own path. She is now reunited with the man she had loved, and the narrator must come to terms with the truth that he was merely a brief chapter in her life. This realization is bittersweet for the narrator, who must accept that his dreams of a future with Nastenka will never come true. However, there is a sense of catharsis in this final chapter. The narrator, in his loneliness and longing, has learned important lessons about the nature of love, relationships, and the human condition. His intense emotional journey, though filled with sorrow, has led to self-awareness and personal growth. He now understands the difference between idealized dreams and the harsh reality of life. In the past, he sought meaning and fulfillment in Nastenka and his fantasies about their future together. But now he sees that true meaning lies not in unattainable dreams, but in accepting the reality of the present and the self. While the narrator's love for Nastenka was never returned in the way he had hoped, it was not without significance. His love allowed him to confront his own emotional vulnerabilities and explore the depths of his desires. In the end, the narrator emerges from his emotional journey not necessarily with a sense of complete fulfillment but with a deeper understanding of the complexities of love, loneliness, and human connection. Dostoevsky's exploration of the narrator's inner world in White Nights also highlights the idea of human resilience in the face of heartache. While the narrator's dreams were shattered and his love unrequited, he is able to move forward. He is not completely broken by the experience. Instead, he finds a renewed sense of inner strength and the ability to reflect on his emotions. The pain of his unfulfilled love, although deep, does not leave him in despair forever. Instead, it serves as a reminder that life's experiences, even the painful ones, contribute to personal growth and self-discovery. In this sense, the final chapter serves as a meditation on the nature of hope. Although the narrator's hope for a future with Nastenka was ultimately unfulfilled, his experience teaches him that hope itself is not a futile pursuit. Even in the face of disappointment, hope provides the strength to continue living, dreaming, and learning. The narrator may have lost his idealized vision of a future with Nastenka, but he gains something even more valuable: insight into the human heart and the bittersweet nature of love. Furthermore, Dostoevsky masterfully weaves in the theme of transience throughout White Nights. The fleeting nature of the narrator's relationship with Nastenka mirrors the transient moments in life that come and go, often without warning or explanation. This impermanence is a fundamental part of the human experience. The narrator's brief but intense encounter with Nastenka, full of passion and longing, ultimately fades away, just as all fleeting moments do. However, in that brief moment, the narrator experiences something profound that will stay with him forever. In conclusion, White Nights leaves readers with a profound sense of nostalgia and acceptance. The narrator's journey, while marked by heartbreak and longing, ultimately reveals the enduring human capacity for love and hope. Even in the face of unfulfilled dreams and lost connections, there remains the possibility of self-discovery, growth, and the ability to reflect on life with a sense of understanding. The story's conclusion is not one of despair but of bittersweet acceptance, an acknowledgement of the complexities of love and life, and a recognition that sometimes the journey itself is just as important as the destination. Through his reflection on love, loneliness, and dreams, the narrator comes to terms with his emotional landscape, ready to face the world with a renewed sense of clarity and self-awareness.